Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're together. And I'll wait while people get into the room, including my wonderful guest today, Stefanie Goldstein, who I see. Hi, Steph.
Hi.
And soon we'll be visited, I think, by Elisha Goldstein. Both of them are psychologists, and we'll say more about what you guys do. Thank you for coming in. Everything quiet at your house?
Yes, I'm actually in my office. Elisha's at home, so I can't tell you if it's quiet. They'll let us know. I've even though I'm seeing patients virtually, we both have been coming into the office on the days that we see clients, so we can
Great.
actually have a sacred quiet space to still
Oh,
because it's really hard for us with 3 boys to do that at home.
I was trying to picture, what room are you in?
Yeah.
Like, where would you do that? I'm out here in my pup tent.
Yeah, I would be like in my closet. And even then they would still come in. So I feel very fortunate that our office is quiet, nobody's here. We're
Yeah,
able to do it in a safe way and still have that space.
nice. Well, it's awfully good to see you.
You.
And all of you who are here, if you want to tell us where you're calling in from, people are trickling into the room. What I'm finding is that more people are watching the replays now. We always try and make things available at times when parents are free, but it's tough to do.
Yeah.
So I'll let you do what you're doing, checking in probably with Elisha. Let me just.
Yeah. I was texting him.
Honey. And if you're on the call and you want us to know about what life is like on your planet, we'd love to hear. I want to introduce you formally, Stefanie, but if maybe we could just start. This is Dr. Stefanie Goldstein, and I'd prefer that you kind of give people a little bit of a view of what you're up to these days and tell them about your wonderful work, and then I'll add in where I think it might benefit.
Sure. So I am a clinical psychologist and a mindfulness educator, along with my husband, who just texted that he can't find the link, of course, even though it was emailed to us earlier today. And I mean, hold on, let me just make sure he's got it. Okay.
Well, I'll fill in a little bit. So Elisha and Stefanie, and he will be here. There he is. Ah,
Right,
ta-da! Hey. Hi, Elisha.
Better together moment.
We are better together. Hey, hi.
There we go.
So Elisha and Stefanie, I'm going to let you continue, Stefanie, with your little bio or intro, but they're dear friends of mine and have 3 young boys under the age of 11. Did Lev just turn 11? Yeah. And they have a house, but it's not a castle, and they are living the thing that you guys are all living. And first of all, I love their work for lots of different reasons, and their presence, but also I thought you could, ask questions about what is it really like. So please carry on, Stefanie, and then Elisha, I'd love for you to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll see who we have on the call. We'll start to welcome all the people filing in.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I'm a clinical psychologist and a mindfulness educator, and I do a lot of work in schools where I help bring mindfulness to students and also help whole school systems and school districts to be able to implement this into the everyday existence of the school so that it's not dependent on outside teachers coming in, but that it really lives within the system, because that's where we see the most positive change and support. And then Elisha and I do a lot of work together with families, and we run mindful family retreats, although this summer we did have to cancel the one that was coming up, but there will be more. And what I'm up to right now is, when this happened, I really had to just take a step back, and because my initial piece was, how do I want to show up as a healer and as support? And then I realized I also am a mom to 3 kids who really need me. And I couldn't fully do both in the way that I wanted to. And so what I have found is that these kind of things like popping on with you really fit well where I can show up and be of service, but most of my time is spent supporting our kids that are at home, trying to still do school, and our household and each other. And Elisha and I are taking turns in doing that because we both still have our days of seeing clients. And Elisha will talk more about this too, but he's created this incredible online space for people to connect and practice and play, and it's just been really beautiful. So
Thank you.
I shall let you introduce yourself.
Okay, well, aside from all those wonderful things that Stefanie said she did, I think you might
But
notice.
it's hard to hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
It's
It's
kind
just,
of underwater.
yeah,
Oh,
you're
you know what?
muffled.
Let me just make sure. Oh, you know why?
How about now?
Ha!
Much
Ta-da!
The miracle of technology. So aside from those wonderful things that Stefanie said she was doing, you might also notice the color coordination
Oh,
of
I
the
did.
books behind her
Right away.
and me.
Well, I need to fix the
So-
one I knew, but I did recently do this one, and it makes me feel happy.
It's one of her self-soothing practices too, you know, in this time of tumult. Yeah, a little about me. I've been in this, father of 3 boys and a dog and 2 cats, and you know, been in. I'm a psychologist and been teaching mindfulness for almost a couple decades now, and yeah, my most profound passion project right now is really this. That really spawned and catalyzed out of this space is opening up this mindful living collective, and it's a global network for mindful living and learning, and play, and put on like concert. We had a live concert, you know, the other night, and with this amazing fingerstyle guitarist, and interviews with leading people, including we'll invite Susan on there, and you know, and we just started a parenting group there, so and
You
so
had
that's
Rick Hansen this morning.
this morning. I interviewed Rick Hansen, and so we have more of that, you know, kind of unfolding, and people are connecting there, creating relationships and sharing learning, and it's really this incredibly rich space of about. We just opened not so long ago, like it to the public, and we have about 3,500 members in there right now, and it's it's really fun. It's a fun, cool space, and so that's my greatest
We'll
thing.
make sure that people, why don't we say the link now, and then we can do it again as we wrap
It's
up.
just mindfullivingcollective.com.
Okay, great.
I'll put it.
All right, so we have Washington State, we have Atlanta. Oh, and you're sheltering in place, of course, because your husband has a suppressed immune system. I'm sorry. Southern California, 19 and 11-year-old at home. Fun, she says. Austin, Texas, and we have a question there, and someone noticed your book coordination. So I noticed it right away.
Everyone notices that.
Read out. It's like, oh, there is order in the world.
Makes me so happy.
Certainty, yeah.
So the way this is going to go, everyone, is that this is not scripted or planned. We're just here. We're here to offer a little bit of our time. There's no charge. You're most welcome to invite your respective parent communities, your church, your temple, your neighbors. It's a weekly something that I put together. Actually, March 16th was our first one. I remember it. I had this, I caught a whiff of something. Oh, we better get something in place for our community. And it's been a lovely series with wonderful co-hosts like today. And we just take questions. So whatever's on your mind, it doesn't have to be a question. It could just be help. I'm struggling. I'm lonely. Some of you are starting to look at the clock emotionally and going, well, wait, this was supposed to be a few weeks. And wait, like, when is this going to end? And maybe you're feeling sad. Maybe you're worried. Maybe you're angry and frustrated. Maybe your kids are starting to climb on the ceiling. Or maybe things are going well and you want to tell us that. So whatever's on your mind, please feel free to share. And I'm going to start with the first question. I'll read it, and then, you know, we can volley the whoever feels moved to respond. I do want to just say that I've been doing this in this thing, and then I have my monthly membership program and lots of other things that I do. And I notice that most people don't ask a question until like 10 minutes before we're done. So if you have a question, please ask it now, so that we can allocate time. We usually go, I don't know, 45 minutes, a little bit longer. So how to recover from Mother's Day, which is always disappointing, and my co-parent acts out. I was disappointed not to go on a planned camping trip and hike. My co-parent and I have been getting along. He chose this weekend to threaten me. Generally, it's just about the burden on moms and how Mother's Day is often disappointing and doesn't really honor the work moms do. About moms feeling seen and soothed. My son is 3.5. All right, Steph, why don't I let you start since you're a mama, and I don't know quite what she means by what he did when he threatened her, but I do know, I've had Mother's Days where it was like, wow, this where's the parade? Or you just want people to be kind of extra nice, and it sounds like she had a tough day.
Yeah. So I just want to first just honor that. And, as always in those moments, to see if we can practice self-compassion, because we are struggling in that moment. And so if we are not finding the kindness outside of us, to at least to be able to give it to ourselves. So I just want to offer that piece. And I will say, I think both for Mother's Day and for birthdays, as I've gotten older, because it often is so externally focused, like what are other people doing for me, or who's called on my birthday, or, what are the kids doing, or what is my husband doing? And while those things are still hold importance, what I have found is that I feel better when I actually make efforts to create that which I want and create a space. Like, so for this Mother's Day, I've been wanting new pictures for our house because we haven't had pictures done.
Updated pictures. Yeah.
Updated pictures, printed and hung up in years. And so I did it. I did it myself. I went on the computer, I picked out the ones I wanted, and we printed them. We created space this weekend to hang them up. Because I live in a house with 4 males, I often am craving my own space that is mine. And there's a little nook in our bedroom that I also reorganized this weekend so that it felt more like my space. And, Elisha and the kids did things too, which was so great and so meaningful, and I really appreciated. But I actually found that the things that I did for myself that really were things that I wanted, that had I waited for somebody else to do, which, like the pictures, maybe I would have wanted Elisha to have done that, and that would have been a nice thing. But it's not particularly his strength. And,
yeah, I think we would, right.
And I do it better, if we're being honest. And I have,
Exactly.
A particular aesthetic, obviously. And it felt good. It felt very self-honoring to do that.
Nice.
Thank you. So I just want to offer that piece, that I think as I've aged, I've shifted more into this self-honoring piece of really doing what I want to do that feels right for me, and looking less externally for it to done for me. Though I still appreciate those things are nice, of course, but we don't always have control over them.
Excellent. All right, here's a question. My 4-year-old is practicing to be a teenager. Everything seems to be a power struggle, and he can't seem to help resisting everything we ask. It's constant and exhausting. I respect how difficult this is for him and want him to express that, but we also need to be able to function. Thanks again for doing this every week. I'll start with that, and then I think you guys can definitely weigh in. I'm sure of it, knowing. So there is, anytime any child or human feels constrained, feels limited, feels that most of the time they're being told what they can't do, what they have to do, which has, the volume of that has gone up exponentially right now. There's so many limitations on what our kids want to do. And of course, this is a time when they're meant to be out, and a 4-year-old is supposed to be asserting more and more of his own will and agency. So I always look at the underlying piece. And one of the things that interests me when a child is constantly resisting, constantly refusing to cooperate, there are a few things. One is to approach them with a request from a place of connection. Because if the pattern is that, you know, honey, come down to eat. I told you, come down to eat. And there's no kind of bridging from helping the child bridge from what he was doing or the fun he was having to this new activity, then automatically there's a built-in resistance because they're doing something else and it may be more fun than the thing that you're proposing. So starting to, you know, not every time, of course, because there's so many things that are going on in the course of a day, but if you can experiment with joining him where he is for a moment, looking him in the eye, or maybe putting your hand on his shoulder or asking him to show you the thing he's playing or tell you a little bit about it and saying, that's cool. Wow, I'm glad you told me about that. Hey, buddy, let's go. It's time to have lunch. That it's called collecting. And we notice that when we collect our children by making some gesture of connection, that there is more of a willingness to join you in whatever the next activity will be. And you said a really good thing too, that you're wanting him to be able to express how hard it is. And of course, I'm hopeful that you're giving him plenty of time to say, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. And that you maybe can use those arguments not as something to argue back about, because I talk about being the lawyer where you're just both of you having this power struggle and negotiating and arguing, but where you say, I can see that this is not the thing that you were hoping to do. You were really having fun doing that other thing. And sometimes we acknowledge or validate the child's point of view or complaint to the point when we actually can help them express their sadness or even their tears, because then we know that something inside has shifted. If you're constantly debating with a child about why they need to do the things that you're asking and not giving them the chance to move from that initial resistance to a place of, Gordon Neufeld calls it the wall of futility, where the child actually realizes, oh, I'm really not going to get to do this fun thing. That's where shifts can happen. And it also helps reinforce that role for your child as the captain of the ship that I talk a lot about. I see so many questions coming in, you guys, that I'm tempted to leave that unless there's something that you really want to add, and then we could move on.
I want to add something to that.
Yeah, sure.
Being on this small panel right here, I just want to express that I'm as much of a student as I am someone who's coming from some experience. And as I listen to Susan talk right now, it reminds me of a moment this morning that I had with our middle son, where, you know, we caught him playing like a video game, you know, and he was supposed to be doing school. And because and I want to relay this, because this to some extent is what I'm about to encapsulate is the importance in parent, whatever the questions that come up here, the importance of forgiveness and as a parent. And so, you know, because we're in this very tight timeline that was happening, I had to be like, you know, on a interview, and Stefanie had to go to see clients, and, you know, and they had to be on their school. And this is like, we're doing this crisis schooling thing right now. Yeah. And so, you know, my first reaction is like, what are you doing? Why are you playing this thing? And so it wasn't coming from a place of connection with him. It was coming more of a place of feeling like like I didn't have the breadth of awareness, you know, in that moment, because my stress was higher. Yeah. So as a parent, especially right now, our stress can be kind of high sometimes, you know, and so we don't have that awareness. But that's okay, because, you know, one of the most important things that I've known about parenting, and that what a lot of science points to, is the importance of repair. Yeah. And, you know, so it's not as much about those moments where we feel like we're messing up with our kids or something like that. It's more also, it's even more important about like what happens afterwards. If there's that connection that can even happen afterwards, is equally, even potentially more valuable than that initial connection. So for me right now, I look at myself and I'm like, okay, so wow, I think I could have done that better. And after listening to Susan, and so right. then realizing like, oh, what would be wonderful for me to do is see if I can have another connecting moment with him.
Nice.
And make that repair. And so that's about forgiveness for me. It's about, him learning and understanding, because he's in this wisdom. Of course he wanted to have fun, doing that and not doing his schoolwork in the morning. But that doesn't make it okay. But what makes okay is a repair coming afterwards. So I just want to kind of share that piece, from a personal story right now. And so, yeah, we can go into other questions, but it's important to integrate.
Add one piece though, because especially with him, when we're ready to make repair, he's not always ready to make repair. Right. And that can be hard as the parent, because I know for me, I feel like I'm trying, I'm ready, I'm really trying to connect, but he's still being prickly and rejecting. Yeah. And so
there's a lot of head nods going on right now.
That can also be hard. So I just wanted to name that piece too, because the way Elisha was describing it, I was like trying to picture it, and I'm like I had to leave this morning and we were still in a fight because he was not ready and I was not ready, really, even in that moment. I think by the time I come home, he'll be ready, but Elisha may be met with more resistance because it's midday and he tends to hold on to these feelings longer. Yeah. And so it's also, I think, seeing where everyone is at and really trying to find a moment where it seems like there's an opening and not losing heart. Yeah. And you're not always met with that openness because they're not ready yet, or you're not ready yet. So I just
That's a really, really good point. Thank you. Thank you both. And thanks for sharing kind of the real live,
the real deal.
I think that's where we really benefit by understanding.
We have a video on the Center for Mindful Living's Facebook page of our family.
That's right. It was hilarious.
Which is very real. So
yeah, that was great. My tween teens, so she's got both, or he's got both. She. Roll their eyes when I propose some mindful activity. So I set things out, I model the behavior, and hope they try. For instance, they will do mindful coloring pages I provide while we worship online. What are some other weekly or daily ideas I can incorporate into life at home, activities that don't seem overtly mindful? And we were initially going to do a class, the three of us, and maybe we can visit that idea again, although maybe you're doing that in this other forum. But I think that it's a great question, because we know that mindful activities for children and teens as well as adults can really provide a sense of stability. But since you have focused so much on mindful families, and just keeping in mind that there are more and more questions coming in, which one of you wants to talk about a few things that someone can do that isn't overtly mindful with their kids, especially tweens and teens?
I'll speak to that. I think if something's working, it's okay for that also to be the thing. Like, I think we want to sometimes have a lot of different things, which is great if we can find, if they resonate with it. But if the coloring is working, maybe even finding different times and places in which that happens, where it's just a ritual where you're sitting together and doing it and putting on music that you love, or it's a time that you are connecting. Because mindfulness just means awareness, that we are aware, intentionally paying attention to our present moment experience without trying to judge it. Anything can become a mindfulness practice. Drinking your tea or your coffee, or if you're having, it's warming up, at least where we are. I know it just snowed for some places, so I'm sorry if you're in those places. But, like when I think about my kids having a popsicle, or, just these moments of really connecting to the present moment experience. So I would just say, rather than looking for activities per se, but just the idea of how you relate to the activities, how you help them relate to the activities. Even if you're on a walk, narrating like, wow, I really feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, and I feel the warm breeze as we walk, or the coolness of the air, and the touching of the snow and what it feels like. So just you bringing more intentional connection to what your own experience is, I think really models that. And when something's working, do that. Like, yeah. I mean, really and truly.
And let me just add, as you're walking and narrating your experience, in some ways, and you're teens and tweens might be saying like, "Mom's so weird. Why is she doing this?" Um, you know, still, even at that age, so Stephanie and I used to run this program called CALM, Connecting Adolescents to Learning Mindfulness, an 8-week program, beautiful program. And so it's teens and tweens. And so what we, realized and kind of knew going in, but kind of realized even more is that, even at that age, certainly at a younger age, and I can give you, I think there's a great idea of what to do at younger ages, but is we're still planting seeds, right? So as you're narrating and doing that, even if you're feeling it's not falling on them really well, or they're rolling their eyes or whatever, that kind of thing, you might just have, those seeds might just plant into some kid, starting a mindfulness club in college, which happened to us, not with our, we don't have a kid in college yet, but with some of the students we worked with, they were just not into it and rejecting. All of a sudden we hear like that kid started a mindfulness club in college. So just know that it's just you being the model, and they're seeing and watching implicitly or explicitly, and there's that kind of piece. But I love what Stephanie said, an example. And just for younger kids, I think it's wonderful if you can, I think just reading those books to them that have that kind of embedded mindfulness in it, or those experiences, loving kindness, whatever it might be, that's where they can like really integrate and digest that, even more. I know our kids love, even at an older age, they kind of love, and not that older, but mid-age, I'd say, for kids, they love, like a body scan at night. It helps them just kind of like soothe and settle in. But our kids too have been very rejecting of mindfulness.
Yeah, they hate mindfulness and meditation.
They've been very rejecting because it takes their parents away, sometimes. And so that makes sense. And at the same time, they ask for it at night. And so it's just interesting. So, we're planting seeds, we're moving along, in that way.
Another great resource, Susan Kaiser Greenland has a set of cards that's really, they're lovely, and they have different activities that you can draw a card and do, and kids seem to be responsive to that as well.
Mindful games, yeah.
Mindful games. Okay, thank you for this amazing service. Having a first-year college student at home has been challenging. Oh my gosh, yeah. I feel for her, since she was doing amazing in terms of adulting at an out-of-state college. Now I'm trying to coordinate this balance of having a child, 11-year-old, and a young adult, because there are rules in our home. The college student just completed her courses for the year, and now there's no movement in her life. She's grieving through sleep, Netflix, and so on. I work from home and supporting the 5th grader to finish her school year. How can I help a young adult find inspiration? Our city is still under shelter in place. It's a great question. Thank you.
Well, I can really speak to that because we actually, we have 3 nieces and nephews who are freshmen in college, and I have 3 clients that are freshmen in college. So there's a lot in my sphere right now of having to deal with this. And I think first and foremost, she just needs room to grieve.
Yeah.
Especially because the future is actually still unknown. There is no plan yet on whether she can go back in person. It's going to be part online, not online. Is she going to stay home? Is she not going to stay home? And what I have found with each one of them is that the motivation feels so hard to connect to, that they're not as engaged because it's not the same. And this freedom that they have worked so long and hard for, to just be able to be and do, and now totally and completely out of their control, has been ripped from them, and they're back home, even if they love the parents and the siblings, and even if it's the best case scenario of family dynamics, it still is a huge disappointment, and there's so much grief. And so I think in part having some patience and really just letting her have some time and space, especially, I mean, it's still just May of like just finishing, and I would say, in a month, if this is still going on, then maybe start to really talk about, okay, what do you want to do? Like, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel connected? And really just trying to help her to find it within herself so that she has agency and she feels like she has some sense of control.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have those 2 very, very, very different ages I mean, our kids are closer in age, but even our younger one feels like in a very different stage than our older two. And that's hard. It's always hard to balance the needs and the different rules and dynamics. And I know with one of Elisha's sisters, you know, the teenagers stay up till 2, 4 in the morning and then sleep till 1, 2 in the afternoon. And, you know, and everybody's on a different schedule, and it's hard. It's so I just want to really acknowledge that, but I think she needs some space and time.
And I would just add, and watch for those little moments that can sometimes be missed where she does offer something about her interior life or what she's going through, and honor those moments. So if she says, I'm bored out of my mind, there may be a temptation because parents don't want to see their children being unhappy. And so we want to offer suggestions and advice and solutions before our kids have necessarily said, I would love your suggestions and advice. I call it crashing the party. So if she offers up a comment or a complaint, like, I'm just bored out of my mind, this is so awful, I miss my friends so much. If you can be present with yourself, notice the desire to offer some kind of a fix, and just thank you for letting me know, honey. I'm here to listen. I can hardly imagine how challenging this is for you, how different this is from what you imagined your life would be. And just validating and offering evidence that you're willing to hear her truth without rushing in to cheer her up or make her feel better, or why don't you try doing this, or have you called Sandy yet? So these are moments when our children sometimes test us to see, are you big and sturdy enough for me to tell you my truth? Will you help me move through this grief by joining me and witnessing what I'm going through without being so uncomfortable that you try and talk me out of the harder feelings I'm going through?
Yeah.
Okay. And we are really thinking of you guys. So here's one. I'm dealing with my ex-husband's rejection toward our 10-year-old son. My son is not complaining, but I feel he's accumulating sadness. I fear, though, he starts to feel unworthy as he has mentioned something at this end. How do I better deal with all of this? Elisha, you want to touch on that?
Well, first, I just want to recognize that's hard. You know, there's something hard about that. You can't control your husband. I'm sure you're having communications with him about it, but it's for your head. When you say, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with this? How do I work with this? The first thing that comes to my mind is, well, first we kind of work with ourselves, you know, and the difficulty that has just as a parent. And to just recognize that you're not alone with that, with worrying about being a parent who's worrying about their child and the insecurities that are maybe being, that you're perceiving maybe being embedded in there, integrated into your child. And I think it's important I guess there's a theme in some way, you know, that's even coming from the other conversation that was happening before, which is that you know, that sense of forgiving and caring and self-compassion for ourselves. And then I think it's not a bad idea to on your end, I don't know the dynamic, so you know, you just forgive me for this, but I'm just kind of going to speak in generalities, which is that, you know, with your husband, I wonder if there's space to have to be curious about that and to have a conversation about it in some way, because and then with your son to also be on the lookout for his strengths, and to be recognizing those strengths that are there, and it's almost like you're fanning the flame of strengths, you know, that are there, you know, as well. And to be with him as best you can during the tougher moments where you're seeing them. But if you're feeling there's something happening from a parenting level, you know, I always think of parenting in some ways as like this tree, and there's roots, and you know, and we want to be able to have this sense of, you know, connection, understanding, curiosity between the two parents, if you are two parents. In this case, it sounds like you are. So you know, that dynamic. So it starts with us, then goes into the relationship of the parenting, and then comes to the curiosity of the child. that's there. So I think of it in those levels. And if there's space for that, if there's room for that within your relationship between you and your husband,
Her ex-husband.
ex-husband. Oh, this is an ex-husband? Okay, I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there may not be. There may or may not be, right? But if you do have that kind of relationship, if there's a conversation that can happen, that would be a really wonderful thing to have.
And I just want to say too that often in these instances, it is actually hard to have those conversations.
Yeah, right, and it can be, right.
And so there is a feeling of really being out of control of what your ex-partner is doing and or treating or parenting or whatever the circumstances, and that is so hard. And I feel like because we are in this global pandemic where literally in an international way, there's so many ways in which we are out of control of what's happening that it's highlighting even more so that feeling of being out of control. And so really grounding in your own self of what you do have control over, which is how you love your son, how you show up for your son, and know that in all the ways you want to shield and protect him, that this is also his life's journey. And the more you can scaffold him with ways to cope and self-regulate and know that he knows that he is loved and supported by you, that is the gift that you can give him.
Nice.
You'll never actually be able to control
Yeah.
how.
And
I do a monthly, we have a monthly membership with Wendy Bahari, who wrote Disarming the Narcissist, Surviving and Thriving with the Self-Absorbed. And so we have this group where we meet with co-parents, either living with or no longer living with their former partner, who have struggles with empathy and entitlement and remorse and attunement and all of that. And so this question comes up obviously quite a lot. And one of the things that we talk about is helping a child reframe an interaction that might have been painful with a parent by saying, daddy loves you, clearly daddy loves you so dearly, you can look at how he does this and this and this, but there is a part of daddy. So we talk about, this is the parts conversation. There's a part of daddy who sometimes seems to have a hard time expressing warm feelings, or who sometimes seems to be really focused on what people are thinking of him. And so if he's out in public and you do something that he might not like, that part of daddy might really yell because maybe it gets so worried and uncomfortable. And we have found that there can be, this can somewhat mitigate ways that a parent we can't control might be interacting. But I love what you said about strengthening your own connection and really understanding that you can't control so many elements, and to focus on the things that we can, whether the word is control or influence. There is so much we can do with a child who may not have a warm and accepting relationship with the other parent, to be the one parent, because they just need one strong, loving, healthy attachment to be that for them. So
there's a couple of questions that came after that in relationship to this that you might want to look at.
Okay. Would that group with Wendy help even if there is no co-parenting? I'm not sure I understand if you mean you're parenting as a single parent. Is there no contact with the other parent at all? Oh, can you post a link? Wendy, Amy, would you mind putting a link in there for the co-parenting with a narcissist group? Me and my husband are home with our 14, 11, and 3-year-old. I'm struggling with following through with any kind of routine in our household. I wish for everyone to contribute in meaningful ways and be productive. How can I help everyone stay motivated? What are some routines that have worked for others? And by the way, you can chime in if you have a suggestion for the author of this question for the things that are working for you. We'd love you to contribute and share as well. So Elisha, you want to take that? Start with that, routines?
I was looking for the question. Is it under this Q&A? I was trying to follow.
It's in the chat. Sorry, yeah, it's in the chat, and you'll see it toward the latter part.
I think you can talk about how well our routines are working in our house.
Okay. Going through the kind of routine in our household. Yeah, this is just a unique time. I think everyone's listening to that obviously knows that, and we're all trying to. No one handed out a book right in the beginning saying, hey, this is what you do in the pandemic with your routines and your family. This is what works. Because we're all unique. We're all unique, and so we're kind of experimenting and trying things out. And so I would think, and what we try and do, and again, it's imperfect. And I would think with 14, 11, and a 3-year-old, that's quite a difference.
Yeah,
Right?
big jump.
So right, that's quite a difference, and so there's different kind of conversations to have with that. But as much as we can kind of cooperate, meaning like bring them into the decision-making process, I think that and be curious about like what they would like to see as a routine, and within our
Right.
kind of boundaries, then I think that would be a wonderful way to do that. You can't do that with a 3-year-old. So here you have sounds like 2 kids who are able to kind of handle their online classes maybe, and then a 3-year-old who you may have some preschool online classes that one parent has to really be there for. But that would be my what we try and do is bring them in. Now, what we've tried to do is have this morning meeting, because we thought like, hey, let's bring the family together right in the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
Often have it at school, but
Because yeah, right. And so that has been met with our older son as just not something he's interested in at all. And the other 2 can kind of get into it a little bit. And then, that kind of doesn't always happen depending on what's there. So we're imperfect with our routine too. So I want to just couch this in like bringing everyone together, being curious about what routines can be put into place that would facilitate them being engaged with their classrooms and work for the family, and then also understanding that it may be imperfect.
Well, and I want to add that different people need different things. Like our older son is very much a routine person.
Yeah,
like
right,
even if we go on a walk, he wants to know how long are we going to go and where are we going to go, even though I'm like around the neighborhood, like we always do. But for him, like it's very containing to know. And for me, I don't need that as much. And so sometimes it kind of can come up against each other.
Yeah.
And so, when we first started, I think we really were like, okay, we're going to have schedules and routines. And because there was so much anxiety and fear that felt like that was going to be containing. Then we had to really reconcile with our family, and that as a family, we're just not that kind of routine type of family. Yeah. We show up for what we need to show up for, but then the in-between times are a little bit more, well, what do we feel like? What's the energy? What's going to happen? And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And so I think it's really honoring that there are a few things in place like family dinner, that feel very important.
Like sacred, some kind of more sacred.
Right. Yeah, but that if the routine is not working for your family as a whole, help your 14-year-old find their routine. Help your 11-year-old find their routine. Create with the 3-year-old what works for you as the parent, because they're 3 and you're the one who's going to have to help them with it all. But that as a family, and I think that's what we found early on, because our other 2 have Zoom classes all throughout the day, and we're trying to do stuff that like, okay, they just need to, and they have way more autonomy over it. And, we check in with them, but ultimately they're really in charge of their own schedules. And that's been really important too for their own development. So I just, I think we all feel like routine is the best thing, but it doesn't always fit. So it's finding what fits for you and your family.
That's a really good point. Thank you. And someone wrote, one routine that I focused on was converting dinner time into a new sacred tradition, like an intimate family party. From preparation to cleanup, each of us is a part of it with music on. It feels like a small holiday where we're all present together. As a result, we tend to linger during our meals and conversation. When it's time to clean up, everyone does their part, and during that time, it's fun because our conversations continue. No one leaves to do something else. At first, Dad and I talked about why we felt this was a good idea, and then asked our daughters what their thoughts were, and then what they wanted to do in this ritual. It sounds very European and amazing, so thank you. That's such a great offering, and I love that.
What I'll say in the very beginning, although we haven't done this recently, which it might be nice to do, is we were checking in with our kids pretty frequently on like what's working and what's not. So that on a daily basis, we could have a sense of where we needed to pivot. And I feel like we've actually gotten away from that. And it would be helpful to return to it, because we got in some sort of rhythm. But as always, it's good to recheck back in.
Yeah.
And I think it's a super helpful question that everyone has space for, to be able to say, okay, so what we've been doing, what's working for you and what isn't?
Yeah.
And what, what would you like to shift? And here's what's working for me and what's not.
Great.
So I just want to offer that too, as a way, as a family, to explore what works.
And by the way, let's just say that's a really good thing to do with ourselves too.
Yeah.
Like during this time, like because if we're the head, whether you have one parent or two parents, if we're the foundation for the sense of certainty and stability within the family, which so many of us need right now, and then it's like, well, what's working for me? What's not working for me right now? And as this thing goes on, and things shift and change, we need different things. We might have needed something in the beginning that we don't need as much. We need something different now. And there's new opportunities. So to check in regularly with ourselves is in that same way is important, and then extend it out to the family.
I think that especially as some communities are starting to loosen some of the standards, and my personal point of view, not that I'm informed in any fantastic scientific way, but from what I'm reading and learning, there is a real possibility of a second wave if we're careless. So we're being extremely careful. We still have not even been to a grocery store, like my husband and I. And so I would urge you to be flexible as things start shifting on the outside, to listen to your own instincts and trust yourselves to keep your family safe and protected, whatever that looks like for your family. I do want to do a couple things before we wrap up. First, I'll read this comment. I love this advice and perspective on routines. There's such a sense of, am I doing this right? But listening in to what I'm feeling and what is working for us is the best thing I can do right now, not looking at social media or articles about what others are doing. Woohoo! Yes. So I want to, in a minute, I'm going to invite you to raise your hand. You can start doing that now. If you'd like me to make it possible for you to just show us your beautiful face and say hi, just so we have that sense of community, because we know that the reason I put this together was that we are better together. The reason Elisha's got his Mindful Collective, it's like we know that one of the things humans always have done to get through difficult times is join together. And right now, togetherness is actually the threat in physical space. So we've created these various ways of still feeling connected with others. I do want to get your feedback. Is this helpful to you? Obviously, we only have some people on today. My plan is to continue for a while yet. It would be helpful to know if it's helpful to you. And then if you want us to see you or you wanted to say hi before we wrap up, I'm going to invite you to put your hand up, and then I'll bring you on as a panelist. And I know some people are a little bit shy. You don't have to do that. But it's sort of just to help people get a sense that you're not alone, that there's lots of other people in this adventure with you. And we know that human beings are incredibly resilient, but we know that one factor in that resilience is knowing that we have others. Hi guys. So you can unmute yourselves unless I need to do it for you. Hi Ulrika, Sonia, Angie, Marie. If you guys want to just say hi, we'd love to hear your voice. Katya.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi from Austria.
Austria,
Hello.
yes.
And we
I'm
have
in
a little friend. We have a
Minnesota.
little friend here too.
Minnesota?
Mm-hmm.
Raise your hand if you're Minnesota. We've been doing Zoom. We did a Zoom with my 98-year-old mother twice, actually, once for our anniversary on Saturday and once yesterday, and trying to make sense of all the, like, who's talking. So raise your hand if you're the one.
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, hi, hi.
Hi.
So how are you guys doing? You want to anybody want to say a word or two?
Oh, sure, I can start if I've already began. Doing all right, you know. Some challenge. I work in a hospital, I work part-time. Got a sick mom at home and lives nearby with cancer and in a divorce with 3 little kids. So it's really been adventurous 6 months and we're growing. Yeah. So, but yeah. But overall, the school thing's going okay, actually. It's
Okay.
up and down.
Yeah.
I got help with somebody coming in to help when I'm at work, so that's been nice.
Sending you a lot of love, Angie.
Yeah, thank you.
You're in the trenches.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Stephanie, I think you have to sign off, right?
I have a client that I have to get to, but it
Okay.
was so beautiful to be here with all of you, and I just deeply appreciate your presence and honor each of you warrior mamas, and if there are any in here, but to my warrior partner here, that this is not easy, and we are each doing the best that we can. And so thank you. Hang in there.
You can give me a high
Thanks,
five.
Steph.
Look, if you do this. Oh, you're on my side. Okay. You know, they do this you do this now in Zoom meetings where you put your hands on the side of your screen.
You high five each other.
And
I
no,
love
you're
that.
connecting.
Oh,
This connection.
let's
You do
it,
this.
guys.
That's
Oh,
great.
Hands up.
we're holding hands.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And anyone else want to say a word or two before we wrap up? You don't have to, but if you just want, yeah, Overita.
I could just give you a little impression of what life is like in Austria right now, because we're coming out of lockdown, and just to give you some perspective. So my teenage boys, or 17 and 19-year-old, had the first contact with friends again. We had people stay over, which was very strange for me to have, you know, different people in here, but it really helped them immensely to meet up with friends again. So this time will come again for you too. We're not completely out of it, but it's starting now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
I just think it would be great if you could keep doing these. I just been able to arrange it to come to the live ones. I've been watching a couple replays, but it's very nice to have something to look forward to at a certain time every week.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so yes, thank you.
We'll try and carry on.
Helpful.
Love that.
All right, everyone. Hugs,
All right.
hands. Take good care of yourselves. Stay in touch, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Elisha. What's your
Bye.
website again, Elisha?
Oh, just mindfullivingcollective.com.
Thank you.
We have
Thank you.
great music events there too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Great.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.